Okay, so welcome. Good morning again. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. My name is Asif Rehmani, and I am here with our three SharePoint experts, Russell Wright, Erich Eaton, Richard Wixom. And our presentation today is our webinar, and our Q&A panel today, this morning, I should say, is very much focused on you to help you, or to try as much as possible to help you. Keep in mind, of course, that there's been dozens of questions that have come in, and I'm sure you guys will have lots of questions here as well. So we're going to try our best to answer your questions, to show you the resources that we can, to show you demonstrations that we can. But if your question does not get answered, let me apologize in advance for that. But we're here to help even after the webinar. If you have any thoughts or questions, you can feel free to send us, contact us through the SharePoint-Videos.com site. There's a Contact Us tab over there. All right, so some of our current customers are as follows. We provide services like video tutorials for corporate licensing, individual licensing, and of course we have the on-demand consulting. And here are some of the customers right now that we currently are serving. People like Autodesk, makers of AutoCAD, Farm Credit, Mid-South Union, Tel Labs, El Paso Corporation, etc. I mentioned the on-demand SharePoint consulting. Here's what we do on this thing. What you'll see in this webinar today as well is we are going to be sharing our screen. We're going to be talking to you just like you have one of us sitting beside you. And this is the same experience that we try to deliver to our customers. And we've been doing this for years right now. So when you need help, you need it right now. And you need it by somebody who has been around the SharePoint arena for quite a while. And happy to say that this team that we have gathered over here, we've had many years of consulting and training experience and speaking experience, authoring experience, specifically on SharePoint. So help when you need it most, delivered only by SharePoint veterans. We don't have anybody else on staff who is not a SharePoint veteran. Okay, one-on-one consulting and training. As I mentioned, we deliver worldwide guidance on SharePoint practices. The URL right there, SharePointVideos.com/remote consulting, or you can just go to SharePointVideos.com and click on the consulting tab, and you'll see exactly the kind of services we provide and how quickly we can make it happen for you when you need it. So let us know. Contact through this email address down there, or go to the website, click on Contact Us, fill out the form, and let us know how we can help you. Aside from the consulting, as I mentioned before, we have video tutorials on a variety of things. The tutorials are anywhere from 5 minutes to about 30 minutes long with minimal or no PowerPoint at all. So very much about showing you how you can do certain things, why you're doing things. Currently, if I remember correctly, we have 266 videos out there. So 266 videos of that caliber. Check it out. If there's any feedback, let us know. We also provide corporate licensing. That means that you can train your end users and administrators and developers, power users, everybody in SharePoint functionality of all variety of different ways. So if you need information about that, let us know as well how we can help you. All right, let me introduce the team that we have. We have Russell Wright. I've worked with Russell for quite a long time actually, back in another company as well. And he's been around SharePoint for a very long time, working in Texas Instruments, deploying their SharePoint portal, etc. 25 years of experience, like it says, and lots of SharePoint expertise. Russell, are you there? Do you want to introduce yourself for a minute?
Yeah, can you hear me okay,
yes,
everybody?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I got started with SharePoint way on in kind of the early days, and basically brought it into TI, Texas Instruments at the time, back in the early 2000s. And really that kind of caught on and just went viral, as you know, some of these installations do, and decided I really like doing SharePoint stuff. So I'm doing a lot of SharePoint training consulting, probably trained 1,500 people or so on SharePoint. And I have a broad knowledge, not just SharePoint, but very broad background in SQL Server and Microsoft servers and operating systems and things like that. So really just kind of very broad. I really enjoy, though, making SharePoint do things for the business. While I can get technical if I need to, I really enjoy helping the business users get their value out of SharePoint. That's what my passion is. Awesome.
Thank you very much, Russell. Next we have Erich Eaton. Erich, actually, I've also worked with before in the past. He's been a trainer, consultant, lots of experience in SharePoint, very well versed in it. Expertise, like it says, workflow, BCS, InfoPath, Visio, a bunch of stuff, architecture. Erich, you want to introduce yourself too?
Sure. My love for SharePoint started as a hatred for paper, actually. Working as a network engineer and network architect, I just kept looking for ways to simplify processes and requests and things like that, either for IT type things or for the people we were serving. And SharePoint became a favorite tool. Eventually I started specializing in SharePoint because I got irritated every time I had to stop working on SharePoint and go fix the Exchange server, or something like that. So I started looking for SharePoint specific jobs and found that there was a lot of it out there, just because of how popular SharePoint is as a product and how few technical people there are available for it. So I really enjoyed that. Actually, what I enjoy the most is creating those no-code applications, that just solve a business problem, that eliminate paper, automate things as much as possible. I've also picked up some ASP.NET coding skills and do some SharePoint development using code occasionally as well. So I think probably one of my best assets is knowing when that's necessary and when it's counterproductive. But my background in network engineering helps me to help with the implementation, the architecture side of it as well.
Great. Thank you, Erich. And we have Richard. Richard also has been around SharePoint for a very, very long time, has a very vast experience in SharePoint. It can get really deep inside, as he mentioned down below, with custom coding, security, Kerberos, kind of stuff that personally makes me cringe a little bit, to be honest. I'm not a Kerberos guy personally, but so kudos to Richard. Richard, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Asif. Yeah, I'm down in the depths of SharePoint, perhaps more than some. In fact, my first exposure to SharePoint was a system I had actually developed that did workflows, that did file management, allowed data collection, and I rolled it out just about the time STS 1.0 came out, and we actually had Microsoft out to look at it, and they said, well, we should have just had you write SharePoint. But I'm a smart man, and I realized the resources behind this product and the breadth and depth of the product, and so I've stepped into the SharePoint back in the STS 1.0 time frame. But my depth, while I have a lot of breadth across applications and different business domains, I also have a lot of depth in the technical space and in the different layering through Windows and up through SharePoint.
Great. Thank you, Richard. Lastly, it's me. I will take only a few seconds, hopefully, to talk about myself here. My name is Asif Rehmani. I'm a training consultant focused on SharePoint specifically for quite a long time right now. I breathe, eat, do everything SharePoint. That's all I do. SharePoint Designer is my top application, the one that I like the most personally within that, the no-code solutions that you create in SharePoint Designer. Next would be InfoPath. Then I do a lot of power user solutions and a whole lot more. And looking forward to this webinar and trying to help you guys, see if we can. All right, so without further ado, that's it for the slideshow. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? Erich, I believe you have something that you want to show. So
I do.
And while Erich is getting set up, here's what we're going to do, guys. From your questions that have come in, we have decided to do one quick demonstration that Erich is going to talk about. He's going to be doing some demonstration on calendars, I believe. This is also, like I said, from the requests that have come in. And then we're going to go ahead and jump into the questions that have come in from the past, from you guys. when registering, and then after that we're going to go ahead and take the questions that you have in the questions panel. Okay, I'll stop talking. Go ahead.
Thank you, Asif. One of the most common questions we come up with anytime we're in a forum like this is, how do I make SharePoint calendars roll up items from multiple calendars across my implementation? And in 2007, there was not a good answer for that. We either had to buy a third-party piece of software or we had to get our hands dirty and develop something. Sometimes that was just a workflow to replicate things from one calendar up to a central one, but there was never a good, clean way to do that without buying something. Now in SharePoint 2010, there is a way to do that. You'll notice that I have a calendar open on my screen. It has a single event in it. The idea of this is it's a calendar for the whole company. It just has important events that all employees would want to know about. However, on a couple of my other Explorer tabs, we have, for instance, the manager's calendar that has some of these super important manager events. And we have a network engineering calendar that has just a maintenance window that's scheduled. In real life, of course, both those calendars will be populated with more events than that. But what I'd like to do is demonstrate how we can use the new SharePoint 2010 calendars to roll all those up together. You'll notice that using the ribbon up at the top, since I'm looking at a calendar, I have a calendar tab. If we click on that, you'll see that we have a new button called Calendars Overlay. This is not a feature that existed in prior versions of SharePoint. If we click that, though, there's a list that's empty in the moment of other calendars we would like to show. Notice there's a maximum of 10. Not terribly limiting. Obviously, if you want to show more calendars than that, then you would just have multiple calendars here at the top that for different subjects or different areas. Let's click the new calendar link. And I'm going to call this the manager's calendar. Notice we have the choice to do SharePoint or Exchange calendars. I do not have a working Exchange server set up in my virtual environment here, so I can't demonstrate that. It does not tend to work very well yet with group calendars. That's the next question that everybody asks. But it does very easily and very quickly allow you to use the Outlook Web Access URL as a means of showing your own Outlook calendar superimposed in this SharePoint calendar, which is a pretty neat trick. I'm going to do a SharePoint calendar, and I'm going to pick, how about pink for the managers? If they're going to go on a golf outing, they're going to have pink for their calendar. Now, we have to give it the web URL of the calendar. I'm going to switch over and copy that. Paste it in. We click the Resolve button. Oh, I gave it too much in my URL. This is supposed to be just the site that you want to talk to. An interesting point is that it does not have to be the same site that this calendar is in. It doesn't actually have to be the same site collection either. Now, once we've given it the site name, the Resolve button finds a list of all the potential calendars we might want to show in that subsite. In this case, I only have one. If we had different views, for instance, maybe there's 1,000 events in this calendar, but only 50 of them are ones that you want to promote up to here, you could create a separate view of that calendar that was filtered, and then use the filtered view as a means of rolling it up here. So I'll click OK. Okay. Now the manager's view is included. Let's quickly add the other calendar. I'll call this network maintenance, if I can spell maintenance. Let's make this one orange. Okay, it finds my calendar. Check this to make it always visible. Now we'll click OK. And you'll notice all three of the calendars show up over here by the name that I gave them in the settings here. Notice that this one in particular does not match the name of the actual calendar. I've found that a lot of times in real life. The name that someone gave the list or a calendar originally is not the name I want to call it somewhere else. So you can give it whatever label you like. And notice that all three of those calendars are all showing together here in this calendar. If you click one of the links of the event itself, my lab environment is apparently a little slow this morning. Notice that it does open up the form, and you could even edit that item from here, even though it's in another calendar. If you click one of the links over here on the left, notice if I click the Manager's link, it actually takes the whole page to that destination calendar, the Manager's calendar. So a pretty neat trick. It takes only a few minutes to be able to roll up calendars now. It takes no extra software, no development. You don't have to get your hands dirty. Pretty neat trick.
It is, absolutely. Pretty cool, Eric. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on. Russell, I don't know if you are ready with another one. Otherwise, I'll go.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
You want to go ahead? Okay. Now I'm going to take one that's going to be, I think it's been in the minds for many people. It's regarding SharePoint Designer. This is something. It's kind of a combined question about, once you have your sites in production, right? Once you have a site in production, how do you update it? And do you use SharePoint Designer directly on the site to update it? And this is going to be more of a discussion-based answer than anything else. And it is, I should say, it is an opinion of mine. Let's see, I want to show you what I'm talking about here. All right, show my screen, yes. Okay, so I've switched it. Thank you very much, Eric. I'm going to go ahead and take this screen from you, full screen. So I have an environment that I'm showing right now, my own environment, and as I mentioned before, SharePoint Designer being my baby, that's what I like to do. I have written a couple of books. I've had the pleasure to read a couple of books on SharePoint Designer. We made video tutorials, quite a bit of SharePoint Designer, and my MSDN paper, the latest one on customizing SharePoint Online with SharePoint Designer 2010, just came out yesterday. So I'm hoping that you guys would believe me when I say the following. It is okay to use SharePoint Designer in production. Okay? This is a statement that I have verified going back and forth many times with the product developers, with the product managers, the program managers, everybody at Microsoft as well. It is okay to use SharePoint Designer to open up sites in production. Now, I know some people will not have a good time understanding and believing and saying, all right, this doesn't make sense. You should not be able to do that. Well, let me ask you this question. Here's what you can do in the browser, right? You go into the browser, you want to make a new list. What do? If you're a site administrator, site actions, and more options. My virtual machine has been infected with the same virus as Erich's, I guess. It's going a little bit slower. But so what's going to happen right now is going to be the create box is going to pop up, and of course it'll let me create a list, right? Well, we're going to assume that you see the create box, which I'm not seeing right now. It's a little bit slow this morning. But what I'm trying to mention over here is that you can make lists, you can make libraries, manage the columns, manage the forms and views, etc. from the browser, right? Now, what do you do in SharePoint Designer? When you have SharePoint Designer, you're basically doing the same thing. This is not it. This is Outlook. Okay. Come on, SharePoint Designer. Okay, so slowly refreshing. It should come up on your screen in just about a few seconds. It's already up on my screen. So what I'm looking at right now is SharePoint Designer, right? And when you look at the navigation pane on the side over here, the stuff that we have that we can do is management of lists and libraries, site pages, site assets, content types, site columns, etc. Now, most of these things, actually what I've mentioned, all these things you can do in the browser as well. So my question to people who said that you cannot use SharePoint Designer is the following. When you go and you need to go ahead and maintain something, a list or library or something else in the browser, do you go ahead and do it in the development side first and then you do it in production? Chances are no. Unless you want to make a big change, you don't do that. You go directly in the production and then you go make changes over there, because it's a different paradigm of how we do things in SharePoint. It's not the same development methodology that it used to be before. Now, having said that, there are a few things which you might want to do differently. So workflows. There's a way to package workflows, and maybe a little bit later, if we get a chance, I'll show you that as well, because there's one question on that. How you can package workflows, how you can package the whole site. Granted, yes, you can do that, but other things, it is okay for you to open up a SharePoint Designer directly on a production site and make the changes over there. Not all changes, but most of the changes is fine. There's one thing that I'm going to tell you about that you want to stay away from, at least until you understand what you're doing, and that is when modifying the page, any page, here we go. When modifying a page, there's a way to modify it in advanced view. Okay, so it's still coming up right now. I'm going to have to probably reset my machine when somebody else takes over. There's a way to modify the page in advanced view. An advanced view customizes the page, or the way we used to call it, unghosts the page. Okay, if that happens, yes, you might have some issues later in the upgrade scenario, so you want to be careful of that. But everything else really in SharePoint Designer is okay. Okay, let me just stop over here. I'll go ahead and work with my machine to make sure it goes a little bit faster next time. Russell, you got something?
Well, there was a question that, and this is something that I guess I'm just going to talk to for a couple of minutes here, and it has to do with the typical printing of lists and list data from SharePoint. And this is something that I've run across several times in the past. And the issue is that people put all this data into a list, and then they usually want to do what I would call a pretty print of the data. And so really what I want to just describe are a couple of options here, 2 or 3 options that I feel are viable for this kind of a situation. One of the options are some third-party products. So if you go out and search on the web, you can find that there are actually some third-party add-ins for SharePoint that allow you to nicely print lists. If you have something that is, well, if you're on a budget and you have access to InfoPath, then another way that you might do that is you might actually do that with an InfoPath form, and actually set up the form so that it will open up with the items in the list and give you a nice printout that way. Another way that becomes more complicated is, of course, using some JavaScript, opening up some new windows and actually doing some formatting with either JavaScript or even more possibly the data view web part. So I just wanted to describe those because that's a question I get asked a lot, and it just kind of depends upon, you know, how much effort you want to put into pretty printing things. Now, there's something else that I want to discuss, and this is one of my favorites, but this kind of turns some people's stomach, and that is when you start bringing in Microsoft Access into the equation. I've noticed in the past there are some organizations that really, you know, you say Microsoft Access and everyone kind of jumps back and says, oh, we can't use that. Kind of like Asif was describing on the whole SharePoint Designer issue. But Microsoft Access connects very nicely to lists and libraries. And so it treats a list or library in SharePoint just like about any other data source. So once you do that, now you have access to all of its kind of reporting capabilities, you know, and you could actually create reports and basically pretty print from Access. There's a lot of neat, cool integration features with Access 2010 in the new SharePoint 2010. So those are just some of my thoughts on a question that I get asked quite a bit.
So true.
So,
Completely agree on that, yeah. I think, Richard, you had something as well that you pinged me about? That question that you got? Yeah.
Yes, I did. We had a question. Let me see if I can take the screen here. We had a question come in about, is there a way to download more than one file at a time from a document library without a third-party add-in or Visual Basic coding? I have very non-technical clients. It used to be so easy in MOS 2007. I think we all kind of pined for that feature as well. But all is not lost. I take it y'all can see my screen here. And actually, let me the way to directly do that is if you go to the document library and you look at this, of course, you can select a document and you get the ability to upload. So you can upload multiple documents. You can also download a copy. But as soon as you select multiples, your download copy is grayed out. So what do you do? Well, the answer is there. It's just hidden. If you'll click on the Library tab up here, you will notice an icon over here that is unlabeled that says Open with Explorer. So Internet or Windows Explorer is still accessible from SharePoint 2010 via this icon. It's just sort of well hidden. And this is a little slow to come up. I played with this earlier, but that's the secret right there. There are some other options out there that do involve some code. Another one would be there's a file that's fairly simple, and I'll show it full instructions here in just a moment, where you can zip those up. So you can select multiple files, select zip, and they'll download as a zip file. Now that may depend on what your clients are using. If you're in a Windows 7, that's probably going to work just fine because the zip file will be, the compressed file will be display the contents of it. If you're in a mixed XP environment, that probably is not going to be as friendly because then you're going to have zip software as well. But this likely is the solution you want to use right here.
Yeah, and that's something that, you know, like you said, it's right there, but it's sometimes hidden, and once you know about it, it makes your life so much easier to do that.
Yes, it's tucked away in a corner. Okay, there, it finally came up.
There you go.
And then once you've got that up, you can just drag and drop. So I've got a couple of files selected there. I can drag those into a drag. I got a folder here that's a drag and drop from SharePoint, and there we go. So you've still got the ability to do the drag and drop. The Windows Explorer button is just a little more hidden, so you can point your users to that and avoid the overhead of having to download multiple files individually.
So true. Thank you, Richard. Eric? You there, Eric?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was answering questions in the text.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you already have one. I know I had one that you had wanted to address before the getting a report of all the sites and subsites. Do you want to address that one?
Absolutely. Let me show an application here again. I got to switch myself to presenter.
So this question, by the way, folks, as he's switching to presenter is, how can I get a report of all the sites and subsites in my SharePoint server or server farm? It's a question that came in. Very good question.
Yeah, this is one that, again, we get pretty frequently because there's not a great place internally to see that. There are a couple of things to point out. I will show you, if you're working with the full version of SharePoint Standard Enterprise, you'll have this tool called Manage Content and Structure that I would imagine most people are probably familiar with, but I'll show it briefly just to point it out. I'll leave this page. It is a tool that shows the entire site collection in a tree structure, and sometimes that's enough. Many times that is not enough, but I did want to point the feature out here. While that's thinking, I'm going to open another tool. If you are a SharePoint admin or someone managing the server farm itself, you have access to this tool on the server called the SharePoint 2010 Management Shell. It's a command line tool. In 2007, we used to use the STS ADM tool for a lot of things as an administrator. And in 2010, you still have STS ADM, but we have this new tool called the Management Shell that uses PowerShell. And I became a PowerShell junkie really quickly when they added it to SharePoint. I really never messed with it before that. But it is pretty addictive. It takes a minute to load, especially when you're on a slow demo server like this. But what it's doing is it's loading hundreds of SharePoint commands that can be used either individually, or you can chain them together to create little one-line scripts that go through and touch every subweb or every site or every library in your implementation. It's pretty cool, and at some point I would like to make a few videos talking about the PowerShell or somebody else. That's something we're interested in doing. But I thought this is a good chance to give you an idea of how this works. If you're new to PowerShell, every command has both a verb and then a dash and then a noun afterwards. And for instance, get command is one that just helps you find the command you're looking for. This is actually a pretty easy command to use because afterwards you can give it a pattern of the type of command you're looking for. Like I know I want to find something that will get a list of all the subwebs. I know that all SharePoint commandlets have SP at the beginning of their noun section. So if I type get-SP and a star, this get command will show me all of the get SP commandlets that are available. Now I want to be a little more specific than that. So I'm going to take a stab and see if it's get SP web, and there it is. We can also get help about how to use that by the cryptically named get help command. If we type the name of the command we want help about, there we go. It gives us quite a bit of information about it itself. What's the purpose? And the purpose is just exactly what we've been asked about. So to give you an idea of how this would work, by the way, as it mentions down here at the bottom, you can do this with a dash examples or a dash detailed, and then the get help gives you more specific information, like if you wanted several use scenarios for this. Sometimes that's the easiest way to learn something, just to see some examples and then a description of what it would give you. I'm going to give you an example. Let's get SP web, and then I'm going to give it a site parameter that has the name of my site collection on it. It'll think for just a moment, and then it should just spit out the sites for me. This is not a very big site collection, but you'll notice the root site. I then have a first-level site called Collaboration Station. It has two subsites underneath it. I have another first-level site called Projects that has another subsite beneath that. So a pretty quick way to do it if you have access to the server. Another way that does not require access to the server is using kind of a little-known trick in SharePoint. SharePoint comes built in with several web services that you can find if you just do a quick Google search. We're allowed to say Google because we don't work for Microsoft. But if you do a quick Google search on SharePoint 2010 web services, you'll come up with several blog posts and things like that that give you a list of what all those are. I've used one here, in SharePoint Designer is what I have open. I have my site open. You'll notice on the panel on the left there's a connection or a spot called Data Sources that shows me a list of all the lists and libraries that are in my site currently, or it gives me places where I can add others. You'll notice that right after the name of the site, what I've highlighted there is the part you need to know. _VTI_bin is the virtual directory where all of the native SharePoint web services are located. And the one called webs.asmx is the one that deals with subsites. I'll reconnect to show you how this box works. Notice that we could choose to insert or to update. We're going to think happy thoughts and just select. We don't want to change anything. Notice that there are more than one operation. All these web services give you multiple things. Unfortunately, there's not a ton of documentation on these, but most of the basic things you would want to do are pretty self-sufficient. You'll notice there's an operation called get all subweb collection. So I have a connection for that. Oh yes, something to mention. For demo purposes, I've just hardwired an administrator name and password into this. These web services do honor security trimming. So if you want to show a true list of all subwebs, you'll have to make sure you give it credentials that have access to see them all. You can also use Windows authentication if you're using Kerberos in your environment. If not, this one typically doesn't work. So just to mention that. I'll click OK. It's warning me that yes, my username and password will be sent across the network. Okay. Now that we have a data connection to it, I already have a page created, but I'll show you what it takes to do so. We have a page that I've named Sitemap. So I open up the panel for it, and there's an Edit File link that will show me the actual web part page. Nothing up my sleeve here, as Bullwinkle would say. This is just a web part page. And in this web part page, I've added a data view web part. If you've not done that before, on the Insert menu is where you'll find the option here. Since I'm clicked on a web part, it's not giving it to me live. There we go. So if you choose this, it shows you a list of all the data sources you have in your site. And since we just added that, there's the SOAP web service right here. And you'll notice, without any arguments or even a conversation, it just adds a list of all of those subsites that we found with PowerShell. It shows us the same thing here, including the title that's been given to those sites. If you want to get really fancy, you can click on this field, pull out the little smart tag for it. Okay, I'll right-click. Actually, it's not on the right click. They changed this a little bit in 2010. There's on the Home tab of the ribbon, there's your hyperlink button. You'll notice that it's got this little code up here for the URL field. You can paste that into the address. And if you'd like, you can even tell it to open that in a new window. And now the URL becomes a link.
Awesome.
Let's save it.
And of course, to do all that you're showing, Eric, you just need SharePoint Designer, free application, right?
That's right. Nothing special, no extra code, just a free SharePoint Designer download. And this works on the free version of SharePoint as well.
Yep, SharePoint Foundation. That's all you need.
This page will be a little ugly since the web part's in there twice, but there it is.
Cool.
And any one of these, you click on and it'll open. My version of Explorer opens them in a separate tab instead of a separate window.
Nice. Okay. All right. So you got data view web part and you got Power Pivot. Of course, with Power Pivot, you need some people might call it some coding skills. I don't really agree with that. It's very much admin stuff that you're doing, and you can copy many of these kind of scripts from online these days and just run it quickly. But of course, you need server access. With SharePoint Designer, of course, you can just do it on client.
Yeah.
Any of these things.
That's
Wonderful. Thank you, Eric. Richard, I think you got something that you want to talk about, you want to show?
Just thought I'd take a minute to answer one of the questions that came in. Said we had a question. How do you find the permission of site content for an individual user? Let me just show that real quick. You still there?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I got a low battery on my phone here, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't lose you there. All right, go to your site, go to Site Permissions. There's a very useful button here called Check Permissions. You see that? What that allows you to do is to play the what-if game. So if I go to this site and I do a Check Permissions, and I can type in any user, so they may not have been granted explicit permissions. They may be granted permissions as a result of membership in a group or whatnot. I can then do a check now, and it will show me the full set of permissions they have against this site. And that's a tool I find I use quite often, particularly when you wander into sites where it seems like the permissions have not been well managed and you've got some unscrambling to do.
So true. Yeah, I'm sorry, were you done, Richard?
Yes, that was it, yes.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick show here, and Russell, let me know if you got something after I do this. Here we go. Changing to show my screen. Good. Here we go. On our site, just like Richard pointed out right now, the check permission thing, which is an extremely helpful functionality. If you just do a quick lookup on check permissions on SharePoint-Videos.com, you'll come up with a video that shows you exactly how that works out. Check permissions for a user. And like I said, all of our videos pretty nicely bite-sized, easy to swallow. So this one is a 7-minute video, and you can it's streamed down, so it's not buffered. You can go ahead and skip to any portion of it very quickly, and it will show you exactly how this functionality and a lot of other functionality works. Cool. Just wanted to point that out to people. Russell, you got something?
Yeah, there was a question that came in here, and I don't have a good demo to show this right here. I've had to do this in the past, but I will kind of show you where some of this information is coming from here.
Okay.
This has to do with InfoPath. So one of the questions that has come in is really concerning InfoPath, and it really has to do with passing data into a form using input parameters. So had to do this with InfoPath 2007, kind of same thing with InfoPath 2010, and that is that it does require a little bit of code. So if you take a look at this particular article that I've come up with here that's on the InfoPath blog, you'll see that there's actually some code that you have to write that actually will look at the input parameters. Now, the interesting thing about input parameters is input parameters can be passed either via the URL if you're using InfoPath Form Services, or they can be passed using a command line if you're using the InfoPath client. So either way, you can pass in parameters from the URL or from the command line. And what that allows you to do then is that allows you to open up a form, for example, and pre-populate it with some data from either a list or a library or any other fabricated data that you'd like to pass in there to actually populate in the form. Now, of course, when you create an InfoPath form that has code and you're going to publish that into SharePoint, you are going to have to publish it as an administrator-approved form template. So in other words, you can't do this without having some, either having some access to SharePoint Central Administration or working with your SharePoint administrator to be able to publish the template that actually has some code, because it has to be trusted. So this is something that comes up quite a bit, but it is kind of a neat thing, because it is possible to open up InfoPath forms and then from some other means, either a data view web part or some other area in SharePoint, you can open up that form and then pass a bunch of data into it and have it pre-populated there for the user. So I just thought I'd take a moment to answer that question.
Yeah, definitely very helpful. And InfoPath 2010, you know, just a quick word about that. Folks, InfoPath 2010 is such a versatile product. If you have not looked at it, check it out. For making customized list forms, library forms, making workflow forms, and form library forms. It's such an awesome application that even though SharePoint Designer to me personally is the first application for most things, as far as forms modification goes, I've now started sending people to InfoPath for that instead of doing it in SharePoint Designer like I used to do in 2007. So definitely I think InfoPath is worth a look. Let's see, I think Erich's got one. Erich, go ahead.
I do.
Yeah,
we had a question submitted earlier about limited access. That is a permission level that shows up sometimes when you're looking at the site permissions or library permissions or something like that. And that is sometimes confounding to people. We had a question about what is the value in having it displayed. It's kind of a philosophy question, I guess. It's the idea of limited access. What it means, in case not everyone's familiar with that, is that if you're looking at in site permissions, let me share my screen just so we can be talking about the page while we're looking at it. Sorry, I got to switch presenters again. Okay. So this is the site permissions screen that you can find on the Site Actions menu if you have enough permission. And you'll notice it shows, in this case, it's pretty clean. It shows just group names and then the permission level that's assigned to each one of them. Now you notice there's one here called limited access because this group basically has something else besides design somewhere in the site. Here's another one like that. What this means in this scenario is that style resource readers do not have access throughout the site. They have access somewhere inside the site. And here the name shows up just so that you're aware that they are valid users and have permission somewhere. Now, there is a philosophy that there's not much value in seeing that, and to some degree I can agree with that. There is, however, a nice feature, because if you find a long list of users, which happens a lot of times, a long list of individual usernames here that have been given permission, and you're trying to clean things up, it can be a really big challenge to go visit every library and list and folder and try to find those and pull them out. Whereas here, if they show up with just the limited access, notice we can sort this by permission level. So the limited access ones are together. You could select them, and then you could remove those permissions wherever they happen to be through the site. So there is some value to seeing those, even if they don't have access throughout the entire site. That at least makes it possible for us to do changes like this.
Great.
I guess it's also good to mention why it's important that those are there. What limited access means is that they can access things that are necessary for the site to display it all, things like the style sheets that do the formatting of the site. master pages. There are things stored within the site hierarchy that everybody would have to have access to, even if they only are given permission to one library somewhere. So that's the idea.
Yeah. It's confusing, but once you make sense of it, it had to go somewhere, it has to be implemented somewhere, and that's the way Microsoft decided to implement it. So, well, thank you for the explanation, Eric. I'll go ahead and go next over here. I'm going to go ahead and steal the screen from you. Let's see, screen sharing, change presenter. Here we go. Okay, here's a question that I got. The question that we received recently here, talking about SharePoint Online. So SharePoint Online, or Office 365, is all the buzz these days, right? With so many people asking about exactly what it is. What does it look like? What do you do with it? How do I augment my own site or our SharePoint deployment with it? Do we just flip over completely to that? What do we do? And also, something specific that this person has asked over here is BCS, Business Connectivity Services. Is that offered in SharePoint Online? So what I'm gonna do is I have mine right here. I'm gonna show it to you. I'll take 2 minutes, give you a very brief overview of SharePoint Online, of Office 365 in general, and then I'll turn it over. Either Rich or Russ, if you guys have something, let me know. So this right here is Office 365, right? This is just a borrowed instance of it that I have right now. And this is the administration screen for it, right? You got the setup on the side, which lets you set up exactly the kind of plan that you want. So it shows me, if you go to licenses here, that I have 25 valid licenses and I have 2 expired of E2, etc. Here are my users. I'm in there. A couple of buddies of mine are in there, etc. So these are the folks who I have licensing for. These are the folks who have been given licenses or Office 365. If you want to purchase, of course you go to office365.com, or within this scenario here you can go to purchase and you'll see it shows you exactly what the cost is. And of course I don't really care about that stuff right now, but I just wanted to show you. That's where you see what it costs. As far as SharePoint Online is concerned in here, when you're at home, when you're looking at just or I should say admin screen, going to SharePoint Online, Manage will show you all the SharePoint specific features that are in Office 365. Okay, so in Office 365 it will let you manage multiple site collections, configure InfoPath form services and also the proxy for it, manage user profiles, and manage term store. That's it. So, central administration that we're all used to on-premise, it does not exist in its complete form here. You got these things, and that's it. What you don't see here is some things like, backup and restore. Can I do that? No. Analytics. Can I look at all that stuff of what's going on? No, you cannot. Can I look at SharePoint Designer settings of how I can restrict it for the organization? No, you cannot do that. You can do it within the site collection, but you cannot do it for the organization. If I go to Manage Site Collections, it'll show me the site collections that are out there right now and the resources that are being utilized, etc. for it. And if you click on one of them, I'm not going to do that because it's going to take some time here, but when I do click it, it will open up a regular site collection that you would have seen in regular SharePoint on-premise deployment. Now, to answer the question that the person has asked here about BCS, Business Connectivity Services, that is not included in this first version of SharePoint Online. But my sources are program managers and product managers within SharePoint Online. These folks tell me that it is coming very soon. So BCS hopefully will be coming soon to us. Currently we have stuff like user profiles, a bunch of stuff here, term store, so we got that, which is good to have, and of course InfoPath form services. This is also a very, very delineated view of InfoPath form services. You cannot really throttle connections. You cannot do a lot of kind of cool stuff that you can do in InfoPath form service configuration on-premise that you can do here. That's it. Here's what we're going to do, folks. Before I turn it over and ask Richard, Russ, Eric if they have anything that you want to show, I want to just let you know that I know that we have made this webinar only 1 hour, right? Which is only 4 minutes away, according to my watch here. But Russell, Richard, and I will stay on for additional 15 minutes if you guys want to stick around. If you guys want to take off, that's fine as well. I just want to go ahead and show one slide here once again and let you know about our service that we offer. If you have a need, if you have some issues that you're seeing in your organization, in your site, if you want to learn about some new features or some existing features that you have not really looked at. So training/consulting we offer on demand on an hourly basis. Let us know if we can help. All right, we've done that for people in UK. We've done that people all over the United States and other parts of the world as well. So let us know. Go to the site, click on the Contact Us tab, and let us know if we can help. And I hope this webinar has been helpful to you, those of you who are leaving, and those of you who are staying. Let's continue on. So Russell or Richard, you guys got anything? Or Eric, if you want to do something before you leave?
Yeah, if I have a quick one. We had a question come in before about installation of Power Pivot services on an existing SharePoint 2010 installation, and that's probably not a real exciting topic for a demo, but let me take just a moment here and get that person pointed on into the right direction. Anyway, can you see my desktop there?
Yep.
Okay, there's a good article on MSDN that's got a step-by-step that'll take you through that. A few gotchas, of course. It does require that you have an enterprise or developer or data center license. You've got to have Excel services enabled, and of course you've got to have the computer on a domain. There is a known issue, by the way, with SQL Server 2008 R2. It is mentioned and referenced in that article, so be sure to pay attention to that. Basically, you're going to deploy the solution package, start your services, create the Power Pivot service application, make sure your Excel services are enabled, make sure your secure store is enabled. You're going to have the data collection, usage data enabled. That's used pretty extensively by PowerPoint to gather the usage throughout the farm. You likely also want to increase your maximum upload size for the SharePoint web applications and Excel services. This is because the Power Pivot workbooks can be pretty large. And then you'll need to activate the Power Pivot features. I will send this URL out via chat, and I don't want to spend any more time on that because I know people will be sleeping.
But I'm so glad you showed this resource. That's so good. Yeah, you can put it in the chat for all attendees if you like, and everybody will have it. Russ, you got anything for us?
Well, not right at the moment. There was something that I was trying to get working here that from a question that came in, but I haven't been successful with it. So
okay,
I'm going to have to defer on that for a moment. But it really has to do with the validation settings, and I've done this in the past. I don't have I don't have my work that I've done in the past in front of me here, but I will kind of show the basic idea here and just give people some food for thought. So with that, let me see if I can grab the screen here for just a second.
You got it.
Okay, so one of the things, hopefully people can see my screen. I'll go ahead and make this a little bigger. You know, with SharePoint 2010, you have some validation settings at the list level as well as the column level. So, you know, you've got some nice ability here to do some, put in some formulas, if you like, that will do validation on either the entire list, adding something to the list, or to one field. Now, one of the things that I found, and this is maybe not completely clear, is that there are a lot of formulas that you can create, and you can get pretty complicated with them. And the thing that I want to point out is that for the most part, what I have found is that if you can create a formula that is very similar to a formula that you would use in Excel, and that formula evaluates to a Boolean, basically true or false, then basically you can build those formulas in either of these validation areas. I'm sure there are probably some exceptions along the way. Of course, I've not been able to try everything, but what I have found is that you know, if you wanted to do a formula where you're checking the status column and you want to make sure that the title is not blank, then you can actually do some ORing in this case. So you know, this is an example of something. I was trying to get this to work in this environment here, but basically this is using an OR condition, and sometimes you have to kind of go into the kind of negative logic. So you know, so basically this is trying to make sure that you know, the title is not blank when the status is closed, for example. And anyway, just wanted to bring that out, that there are a whole bunch of these validations that you can do here that really, quite honestly, what I found is that they just take some time to really figure out the logic, but it's amazing what you can do.
It is. Completely agree. Richard, do you have something, or do you want me to go?
Go ahead, Asif.
Yeah?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm picking up stuff, and I'm seeing all the Q&As are coming through here. Hey, folks, thanks a lot, first of all, for sending so many good questions our way, giving us some food for thought as well. You know, there's one being asked about SharePoint Designer here, saying that how do I hide the SharePoint Designer option completely from Site Action menu, editing a SharePoint Designer. So there's one, you're asking this question. You know, I'm a big believer in not really hiding things, but just limiting or restricting it on the back end as needed. So you can hide it. Yes, there are ways you can go directly in. I believe there are some configuration files, XML files, that you can go in and turn off some of the features of the ribbon. I've not really worked with that as much, but I've heard about it. But keep this in mind, that if you are not a site designer with design privilege, or a site owner with full control privilege, or anything above that, you really cannot use SharePoint Designer 2010 at all. I mean, if you're a reader, you're a viewer, you're an approver, you're a contributor, member of the site, any of these folks, you just don't have privilege to do anything in SharePoint Designer, because SharePoint Designer is there to create structures, to manage structures and permissions and workflows and everything else, and none of these things are in your domain. So quite honestly, if a person has the permission to open up a site in SharePoint Designer and to do things with it, they're going to find a way anyway, even if you hide it from the ribbon. Okay, because there's actually, by the way, as one, you're the one who asked this question, there's not only one way. There's actually, I believe, 2 or 3 buttons. There's one which says edit this list in SharePoint Designer. And then there's, of course, one in edit in SharePoint Designer. And I believe there's one more. So you're going to end up hiding all these buttons, and they're still going to find other ways, because you can go SharePoint Designer and find a way. Just take their permissions away directly. If you don't want them to do anything with that, don't make them a site owner, and you'll be fine. So I hope that helps, Zwan. All right, that was done. I'm off my soapbox now. Richard, did you have something?
No, not right now.
No?
Russell?
No, I don't have anything. I'm kind of going through some of these questions.
That's what I'm doing in the background. We're looking through. We got a lot of
okay.
questions coming in, guys, so that's great.
Yeah, it's just.
And what we're trying to do, I've done a few, and Eric has done quite a bit, I see. Richard, you've done quite a bit. Russell, you're also. We're trying to answer the questions in the background as well when we're not talking. There's a question here about branding. Okay, so there's a couple actually people are asking about branding over here. How do I move forward with branding in general, basically? And I'm going to show you a resource. Don't take this the wrong way, because I'm going to be showing you something that we offer here. But here we go. Where's the screen? Change presenter. All right. Russell, I stole the screen from you. So if you go to our SharePointVideos.com site, if you go to products, within that you're going to find we have a complete branding video tutorial class, basically a video tutorial DVD. If you go to SharePoint 2010 branding, first of all, I would definitely implore that you guys go ahead and take a look at these free videos, which says modifying the look and feel of my site pages, or using third-party controls for site branding, and other information here. And then if you want, you can take a look at this thing. There is a very good blog that Heather Solomon, I don't know if you guys have heard of Heather Solomon, she has put out. And I'm going to actually go to my own blog, which is blog.sharepointelearning.com, and I'm going to do a quick search for Heather's name so I can show you this thing. What I'm about to show you right now, if you're a branding person, this is so important, so ridiculously important stuff. A CSS chart that shows you all different class IDs and tags that are in SharePoint. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but SharePoint 2010 CSS reference chart. Very, very good stuff. Where do you go and which attribute do you change to, for example, switch around the search box, right? Or change the look and feel of global breadcrumb or navigation or whatever you want to do. Lots of good stuff here. What I'll do, just like Richard did, I'll go ahead and copy this thing and I'll put it into the chat window so you guys have it. Let me go ahead and send it to all of you. This will be really, really helpful to you, either to you or to other folks who are, in your organization who are into branding and all. Okay. All right. Well, obviously we're not able to get through all the questions here. We have so many, and we only got a few minutes remaining. Any last thoughts that you guys want to cover, Richard, Russell?
Yeah, let me throw one more out there. We got a question about whether it's possible for a three-state workflow to trigger a custom workflow when a task is completed. Haven't tried this specifically, but you should be able to trigger the SPD workflow on the completion of the task, or fire one or more of the SPD workflows at the beginning and have them wait for a state change. Yeah,
that's personally something that I've not tried either, but
I haven't tried it either, but should be able to do one or the other. Should work.
One thing that many people ask about specifically workflows, that can I have one workflow trigger another workflow, and then that triggers another workflow and so forth, and can I do that all without code? And so far, the only really way to do this is having a chain reaction where you change something which triggers another workflow on the change event. But that kind of functionality that everybody's been asking for, hopefully, and I can't say too much more, but hopefully it will be coming in the next version.
Well, and I will add to that, Asif, that there are some very useful SharePoint Designer workflow activities out on CodePlex.
True.
And available from other companies such as SharePoint Solutions or something where you can actually, there's one out there I'm aware of because I've used it multiple times, and that is to start another workflow.
Yeah.
And very, very handy to have that. There are also a number of other ones out there that anyone who's done much workflow development in SharePoint Designer, you'll find that there are a number of them that you can purchase, or you can go get a lot of them for free on CodePlex. And that really depends upon what your business's tolerance is to having kind of non-supported code or code you're going to support on your own, as opposed to paying some company to kind of be your support mechanism.
So true. There's lots of good stuff, but of course with the free stuff comes the responsibility that you have to support it.
Right, right. And there was also something, you were talking about some of the branding, and so there was a question that came in, and it had to do with, it says, in order to use custom CSS file in conjunction with core v4.css, what's the best approach? And the question here, do we save the file and images in styles library and update the link in the master page? Or do we save to the image folder and do custom CSS on the server, link it to the master page using SharePoint Designer, or whatever best approach? And I will tell you that this is something that you could get into a nice long conversation on, because it depends a lot on how, what the scope is of all the changes you're making, because a lot of times if you're going to, and what your level of access is. So not many people have a level of access to actually allow them to write information to the actual SharePoint front-end boxes. So for example, let's take an example. Let's say that you have a SharePoint farm that has 2 web front ends. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now you've got 2 web front ends, and now you're going to start doing some things like putting some images down low in the image library in the layouts area, and then maybe you are going to create your own custom folder for all of your custom images. Well, you can do that, but then you have to realize that you have to keep all that in sync on your multiple web front ends. And so, now it becomes a question of, are you going to create some kind of a solution file that's going to do this? How much more work are you going to put into that? Or are you going to put it in a place in SharePoint where SharePoint already knows about the web front end, so you don't have to worry about, it's going to put it in the SharePoint database somewhere, so it really doesn't have to worry about deploying this feature or these extra files or whatever to the multiple web front ends. So, like I say, the discussion on this particular point, just from a scope perspective and from a level of effort perspective and from a security perspective in terms of what an individual person has access to, there are almost an infinite number of variations, but you can definitely find one that works in your environment. You can find probably more than one that works in your environment very well.
Great. Well, I think we're about need to wrap up right now. It's 11. Yeah, that's what I'm getting over here too. Okay, so let's wrap up here. As I mentioned before a few times, if you guys need more help after this webinar, if you want to see what we can offer, go ahead and go to SharePointVideos.com, click on the Contact Us tab, contact us, or just email info@SharePointElearning.com. Check out the Consulting tab here as well to see exactly who we are, what we can offer, and if we're able to help. We can also, what we do with companies is we sell buckets of hours, support hours, on-demand consulting. So if you have a need for that, let us know. Anything else that you have in mind, let us know. Any thoughts, feedback, suggestions, please fill out the survey that's going to pop up right after this webinar is over. If you give us some feedback, some thoughts, some questions, critical, whichever it is, we'll do another one of these. Otherwise, there's got to be some value for us to repeat something like this again. We have recorded this, so hope is that we're going to go ahead and put this on our site, the recording, and you'll get a newsletter pointing to the actual recording, hopefully by Tuesday. So look out for that. And that's about it. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you all for giving your time, and hopefully this was helpful to you in some way, shape, or form. And Erich is already gone, so thanks a lot, Erich. I'll tell him thanks later as well. And Richard, Russell, you guys have been awesome. So thank you very much for joining today.
Thank you, Asif. Enjoyed it.
Thanks, Asif.
Well, thank you. All right, folks. Take care. Have a great rest of the day. And talk to you next time. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.